Hello and welcome into the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates. Joining me on the other line is senior writer Mike Craven. Just popping in here, y'all, to say we are about to host Stephen Godfrey we knew him from Split Zone Duo. Big fan of what he did there. Now at Yahoo Sports with the College Football Inquirer and running with the Phantom Island podcast. Does a lot of great work. We're both big fans of him. It was a great conversation.
I wore a barbecue t-shirt, which I feel like is heresy because it's not it's from the town that I was born in Georgia. So somebody's going to see it and get really mad. So right. I'm a barbecue diplomat, I promise.
How does Georgia barbecue compare to Texas barbecue? Let's get everyone real pissed off right here.
Okay, so I'll open with this. I live in Nashville. I've lived there. This is my 19th year, and it's the perfect barbecue junction because if you're open-minded, you'll have the Carolina, Georgia. I would say Georgia barbecue is mainly Carolina if it's not Korean influenced in Atlanta at Heirloom. And then you have the Memphis people who are like really hardcore. They're probably the ones that want to go to war with y'all all the time. Yeah, if someone's online talking negatively about Texas barbecue, they're probably from Memphis or St. Louis.
Sometimes Kansas City.
Yeah, I would say Memphis, St. Louis, Kansas City, sort of one quotient. But Nashville has so many Texans in it because of the country music industry that we have a lot of Texas proper. Like we've had pitmasters move here and do all the sort of traditional Texas methodology. I could talk about this instead of college football if you want. I'm a diplomat. I celebrate everybody. I prefer Texas barbecue over what you would call Memphis or Carolina. Like I am happier eating barbecue in those little towns in Texas that I go to. But yeah, it's weird. People get real passionate about their barbecue opinions, whereas I'm just happy to be eating barbecue. As I think is like that. We should be focusing on that.
I probably shouldn't admit this as the Texas guy, but I'm with you. Like I can go to St. Louis and enjoy barbecue or Memphis and enjoy barbecue. Like who are you if you cannot go to those states and enjoy the barbecue?
Texas has the best barbecue. I guess that's what people are waiting to hear. Like, but I'm also a guy who I'm more Southeastern. I don't consider Texas the South. It's Texas. I don't know if that'll make the listeners happy or mad.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Like Tyler and Beaumont are the same place that I'm from, but
I-45. We don't get you in the weeds here, but anything east of I-45 is the South, is Southeast.
So the Texas experience to me is superior. I wish I could shout them out. I don't know the name. I watched a documentary on like Vimeo or YouTube or something about it was a bunch of young kids in their 20s who became pitmasters in some small town, and I think they won the Texas Monthly one year. And I was like, I got to go try their place. I like the idea of not going to like Austin or wherever and like standing in line at the place that everybody knows is at Franklin's. I want to go to those like middle of nowhere towns. So I don't know. I don't know if we're recording or not. Also, I think Houston's the best food city in the United States. So I'm not trying to kiss the rear end of the listener, but yeah.
Well, the voice you're hearing is Stephen Godfrey. He is a veteran college football journalist.
Talk through the intro. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
You can catch him on the College Football Inquirer podcast with Andy Staples and Ross Dellinger, also a contributing columnist for Yahoo Sports, co-host of the Phantom Island podcast. Stephen, thanks for coming on to the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. We got so many storylines we can talk about. Arch Manning at Texas, right?
Hey,
Texas
I got this.
Hey, there we go.
So y'all send me a copy every year to Nashville. This one I was on vacation when it hit, and so it sat out in my mailbox and it got rained on. So it's got some texture to it, but I do I do read that. It is a beautifully designed magazine. Y'all do the Lord's work. I'm very excited.
And it holds up through the rain in the mailbox.
Look at this thing, man! I'm telling you, man, this is quality production.
So do you want to start off with the cover boy, Steve Sarkisian in Texas? Do you want to start off with Texas Tech, or do you want to start off with Rice's shotgun option offense with Scott Abel at the helm there?
I don't know if I want to alienate the entire offense or entire audience right away. I say we can do. I don't know what is left to be said about Texas at this point. They are not as interesting to me. That does not mean that they are not good. They are the best team in Texas right now, but they're not as interesting to me as some of the other schools.
I got one for you on the Texas side.
Okay.
Do you find Steve Sarkisian's kind of arc and just emergence as one of the guys that feels like destined to be next? Do you find his story to be interesting? And did you think that he was going to kind of come out the other side when he got hired at Texas?
No, actually. So Mike, yeah, you're going to make me take it back now. He feels so unlikely in certain ways to be emerging in the post-Saban Southeastern Conference as there is no heir apparent. We're not going to replicate what we saw the last 20 years in the Southeastern Conference. But the idea of actually, you know what? Let's not even worry about the SEC. This man brought Texas to a level of realizing its own potential in the modern game in a way that no one else did, period, full stop. That's not to slight Mac Brown. I think it was a different time and different era, and I think the need was different. And I think Mac is a master politician, and I think he was a great steward of the brand of Texas for a long time. But the results are also that Mac won one national championship, and there was a lot of potential left in that are unrealized in terms of titles at that program, even if Colt doesn't get hit on the shoulder and all that. Okay. After that, we don't have to go through all the hires and misfires and the Tom Hermans and all that stuff, but that Sark is the person to sort of bring the booster culture to bear and is the one who can somehow make it all work in that sideshow, and that sort of perennial distraction of Austin, I think, is something I never saw coming. Knowing Sark at USC, knowing what Sark went through, there's no way of anyone that was in that Saban assistant orbit, even if you were a homegrown assistant like Kirby, or if you did the career rehab stint like a lot of those guys did, which was more of what Sark did, I would not have picked Sark. I was very surprised the day the news broke that had been the SEC, because Texas had been building for SEC inclusion long before we in the public knew it, right? I mean, I think that's like old news now. They knew they were going to retrofit their program to go to the SEC. To pick Sark was a bit of a pretty substantial surprise to a lot of people here.
Mm-hmm. In terms of Steve Sarkisian and building up the Texas program, it feels like he is one of those next coaches to break through and win a national championship. With the Ohio State game this week, how badly do you think he needs this win, considering last year he went 0-2 versus Kirby Smart and has lost the last two college football playoff semifinals? Like, could this be a mark? I mean, that's a dumb thing to say. Could it be a marquee win? But how bad does he need this win?
I don't know if he needs it that bad. Here's why. If you had the offseason of coverage that he's had, here he is. I don't know why I'm plugging the magazine. You guys have all bought it. There you go. It's a beautiful magazine. If you've had that level of coverage and you're still breaking in at first time, consistent starter, no offense to ULM. I know the kid played against ULM, but like, you take a loss that's manageable, that's explainable on the road in Columbus, and then you fall out of favor for a couple weeks. I know a lot of head coaches, and a lot of head coaches would probably take that as a quieter path to resume. You know that if you play in the SEC championship again, you're going to the playoff, right? Yes, they would love to run the table and be dominant and have a 1-2 conversation with like a Penn State all season or what. That's fine. But say that doesn't happen. I don't know, by virtue of our current structure in the 12-team format, that you have to take this game as a sort of referendum. Now, the disaster scenario to me is not the win or the loss metric. It is how Arch looks. There's a lot of inexperience on that Ohio State defense. There's a lot of turnover versus what you saw from that Ohio State defense last time they played. So I'm curious about that. More curious about Sark's play calling in general, in terms of big situation play calling. Sark's good for that one inexplicable call, or in Texas's case, the goal line series, the series of calls last year. I'm a lifelong Atlanta Falcons fan, and there is a play call from Sark when he was OC in the playoffs against Philadelphia we still talk about that is just inexplicable. I'm less worried about the overall health of the program, provided we're talking about a situation where they lose by 7 or 10 or something like that in week 1. These are quality losses now. We need to accept that as part of our verbiage in this sport.
Moving on to Texas Tech. College football has been kind of a caste system forever. Like, you kind of are where you are. We've established who the blue bloods are and who can win national championships. You know, Clemson, Oregon have kind of crashed that party, or the latest ones too. Can a team like Texas Tech do that? Or is this just punching up in the Big 12, not punching up nationally? Like, where do you think this thing can land for them?
Are you asking long-term or
Yes.
just sort of as this? Oh, okay. I think it's fascinating. And I think it's a question for their boosters. And so we've given that part of this equation the most agency that we ever have, right? It's a legitimate now to pay players. You do it above board. You have rev share. You have NIL. And Texas Tech has been one of a handful of schools to say, all right, we have been known to be of this caliber quality program, and we are going to comport ourselves differently now. And they're going to make, at least in terms of aspiration, Indiana look quaint by comparison, right? Because the secret to Indiana last year was they spent a lot of money. That got overshadowed because of Indiana's this left field team and Cignetti's this great coach. But no, they got in the NIL game. That's it. Whereas the coverage on Texas Tech and the attention has been all about the money. So I think the answer to that question is what happens, and I would pose this back to the Texans here. What happens if it's a 9-win season and they don't make the playoff? Are they going to turn the funds off? Are they going to close the spigot and say that wasn't worth it? We're not seeing ROI. Are they going to double down metaphorically? Or what do they do? This is why I put McGuire in sort of like we were talking on the Yahoo show about sort of a hot seat situation. And what my point was, historically, at any other time that I've been doing this, if I looked at year 4 Texas Tech head coach and it was 9 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins, or 8, 9, 8, one of those, I can't remember. Mm-hmm. That would not necessarily mean that anyone at Texas Tech would be on the hot seat. Close to the opposite.
Be job well done.
But if you're sub 10 wins this year, that doesn't feel like ROI. It doesn't feel like you're getting what you're paying for in this instance. So it's really their patience long term. There could be some problems on the field just because you've assembled this roster by a dollar value. You could still have some coaching issues. Do they overcorrect? I'm curious what they do. And honestly, I never covered Texas Tech as a beat writer. I only know them from the national level. I'm curious if those who have written these checks are in it for the long term, or if this feels like a 1 or 2, 3 year experiment. And we're seeing both of those, by the way, in college sports right now.
I personally think that the barometer this year's Big 12 championship or bust, because Craven, you wrote about this, the last guy to win a conference championship was Steve Sloan, right? In the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, they haven't Tech hasn't won an outright conference championship since 1955 when they were in the Border Conference. And so I think the fascinating thing about Tech is the ceiling is now the floor. What was a really great season is now the baseline expectation, and how do you do that? But from talking to Cody Campbell, I get the impression he's in this thing forever. Whether that's with Joey, whether that's post Joey, he's got all of this money. This is his ability to be like the Jerry Jones of Texas Tech football. And he's just the way he phrased it to us is, we're just going to keep knocking on the door and eventually they're going to let us in. I don't know if
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I don't know if Joey's on the hot seat if they go, let's say 7-5, 8-4 this year, but he is in 2026. I think it's one of those, it's not going to, it would have to go really bad for something to get done after this year. But going into 2026, eventually the billionaires, to your point, want the return on investment.
It reminds me a lot, actually, of my alma mater, Ole Miss, in that the last couple of years you've seen a younger, forward-thinking class of booster. Younger is contextual when you talk about boosters, just people who aren't necessarily 85, right? Who have come up and now have an above-board means, which was always a problem for Ole Miss, an above-board means to pay players. And there seems to be much more of a positive, organized effort to elevate brands that we in the media and just college football in general have always dubbed as mid-tier, right? I think Ole Miss and Texas Tech have played each other in a bowl many, many times the last 20 years. Good evidence, right? Not necessarily the hardcore middle class, maybe a step above it, but that's it. That's the ceiling. And that's, I think that, again, the difference for Tech is the potential seems larger because of the amount of money involved in the source of the funds. The knock on Tech was always, when I would talk to Texas-based recruiters at the collegiate level, just you could have the greatest coaching staff in the world in there, but you've got to compensate for the fact that you've got to get the kids from Dallas or from Houston or from San Antonio to Lubbock. The money helps. I mean, it's that simple. Like the money solves that problem. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. They are now outside of the state. I don't know if y'all are feeling this. They are now so much more interesting on a national level to all of us.
We've talked all summer about like the hierarchy in Texas has always been Texas and then Texas A&M. Those are the two best jobs.
Sure.
And for the last 15 years, next was TCU and Baylor.
Yeah.
Has SMU and Texas Tech disrupted that hierarchy because the game is changed now to where they can? And for different reasons, for 40 years, Texas Tech and SMU couldn't aspire to that level. One, because of location, one, because of death penalty. It feels like with NIL, like there's a legitimate case that Tech is the third best job in the state, or SMU is the third best job in the state now.
There's a very popular but misinformed belief right now going around the Southeastern Conference that if Sam Pittman were to bomb out this season or just sort of kind of be retired off after like a 6-win campaign, that Arkansas could chase a John Summerall and then rely on a Rhett Lashley. This is, I would say, misinformed. I would strongly suggest that this is misinformed because I don't think that people are understanding the aggression of SMU in the market. I don't think that people are understanding. Now, look, there are some things that SMU can't do that Arkansas can. Like you're going to coach in front of 25,000 people or you're going to coach in, Tuscaloosa and Baton Rouge. And like, I get that part of it. But in the short term, they remind me a lot of Tulane at the G5 level of being like, hey, we woke our money up. And in SMU's case, they're in the Power Four. They're in an extremely winnable conference. And they've got a passion to keep this thing going. So where this leaves, it's funny. I guess I would probably ask y'all, but where this leaves the rivalry teams, I don't know, because it's not like Baylor's going to. We talked about this. Actually, I was on Nashville radio this morning. We were just kind of going through the week of games, talking about more from the Auburn perspective. But if Baylor struggles this year with a non-Texan head coach, who was, I think, a great coach. I think he's a great coach, great defensive mind, but ultimately may not be the fit for Waco. I don't know. A lot of people in the world are instant fits for Waco, but if they move on from Aranda, they have to be watching what's going on in Lubbock and saying, like, we can do that, right?
It's just whether their donors have the stomach for it.
Yeah.
Right. Like Cody Campbell played offensive line for Mike Leach and wants nothing more than for Texas Tech to be in the same conversation as Texas and Texas A&M and be in the national spotlight. The donors at SMU, like Bill Armstrong, graduated in 1982 and like were there at the height of it. And they want their daughters and their sons to have the same college experience that they do. I don't know if the donors at TCU and Baylor want to compete at that level or if they want to just do sports rev share, $17 million. We're all in on that, but we're not going to go to $25-30 million. Like we're not going to do what SMU and Tech are doing. I don't know if that's true or not, but that would be my question to those donors.
A few years in the wilderness might change their appetite, honestly.
Right.
I think, or if Tech becomes a level of household on a national scale, I think that could really sour those programs who have always enjoyed a built-in advantage over Lubbock. Or
if they're afraid they're going to get left out. Like, I think one of the reasons Tech and SMU are spending at the way that they're spending is they're worried that the music's going to stop and they're not going to be part of like the Super League.
Right.
But if they forego the money rights and the $100 million to get into the ACC, or if they spend like Texas Tech is doing, then like how can the SEC and the Big Ten not include them? I think that's what they want to do, and I wonder if Baylor and TCU feel the same urgency.
That mentality would echo the English soccer revolution more than anything in the domestic U.S. because we talk about super leagues and. Greg Sankey talked a lot about the English soccer model in that book that he loves so much, which was about the formation of the Premiership, and it's called The Club, by the way. And if you're listening to this, you don't care anything about soccer. If you want to know the future of college football, you should read that book. It's actually not really about anything that happens on the pitch. It's all about sort of the backroom machinations, and that mentality. If you're correct, Mike, about SMU and Tech. Would echo the programs that sort of became franchises in European soccer that aren't from necessarily sitting in major cities. They just said, we can spend our way into relevance if we can sustain it. I mean, the stereotype of SMU is it's this bottomless pit of old Highland Park money. Tech, I'm just interested in the long-term commitment. But again, when you have that ex-player mentality, you have that sort of like specific visceral passion. I don't think it'll be 1 or 2 years. It's interesting that you would reset McGuire immediately as a hot seat candidate next year. I think that would actually be smart for the program, not to look rash or impulsive, because the rest of the industry is watching right now, right? And you can throw a lot of money into something, but if it's not well managed, you're still going to be hard to deal with, and you're not going to get the best available talent at all the different jobs, and not just on the field. So I think that bodes well for Tech if that's what they do. Or, hey, they could just pop off and win the league this year, and bam. I think the reverberations, if that happens, will be strong across the nation, not just in the state of Texas.
I also think it's a long-term play because it's hard for my simpleton brain to wrap my head around how much money guys like Cody Campbell actually have to where what they have done this offseason, it is an insane amount of money. And also he probably is not like feeling it, but he does talk about, even in our interview that we did with him, Craven, how when he's giving a charitable donation, he's looking for an investment within that. Like none of those guys are giving money away ever. So, but I think this is a long-term play to get into the next split that's coming in college football.
I mean, every time I talk about the state of Texas and boosters, I check the price by the barrel. What are we at? $64 a barrel. All right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple sometimes.
I know you grew up a fan of a smaller program at Georgia State. I went to UTSA. George, I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to do that. I thought about not doing that earlier.
It's all right.
I knew I was going to do it. What do you say to a G6 fan that just says, this isn't fun anymore?
I would want to know who they're a fan of first, because I do think that there's some context. And I do think there's a way in. But look, I can't refute that feeling. To me, we've beaten on these schools for so long and been so unfair to a lot of them that they're probably used to it. I think the people who are really struggling with that right now are the bottom of the P4, who just feel like they're not going to be able to catch up. And this is why Brent Yormark's having conversations with private equity or doing something weird on the field to get, PR, kind of creating stunts. Like the Virginia Tech presentation that their athletic director gave about 2 weeks ago now to their like board of governors in Virginia. That was depressing. That was brutal. Because the expectations at a place like Virginia Tech, 20 years ago, they played a national championship game, and financially they're obsolete. So most of the G5, I think at this point, has a certain sort of feeling of resignation. In y'all's corner of the world, I don't know if people are feeling it as much, because I do think that of the handful that could make some noise nationally, a couple are still in that state, if they can get it all together. I'm curious about, like, I recorded an episode of our show Phantom Island with Ryan Naney today, and we kind of did a sort of de facto season preview based off of our listeners' feelings in a survey, and we had a lot of North Texas responses, and you get the feeling that they know the pieces are there, the potential is there, and they know that there's a weird feeling. I don't know if there's like a name for it, where in the group of five, the last 10 to 20 years, you've had this thing happen where a program has a sort of defined identity, and then a new program, like a literal new program, comes and does it better than them in the region. So, in my corner of the woods, it was Southern Miss was this program in the 90s and aughts. And then like that became South Al and Troy and other schools that weren't really an issue for them in their region. And they kind of pulled their whole identity out from underneath them. I think a lot about like North Texas always had that aspiration. You're in the Metroplex, you have access to this, that, the whole deal, right? And then UTSA emerges as a better version of the UNT blueprint. And then I said this on our show today, I think it's one of the best G5, G6 rivalries in the country that people probably don't know about. And I know it hasn't been much of a rivalry, but I think that's why it's building in the way it is. So if one of those schools can put it all together, by the way, put it all together kind of just means like can you get a defense that's semi-decent? Because you have great offenses, right? Like these schools are known for these great offenses. This I was the guy that the DC that didn't go to Temple with Keeler, who went to UNT. Skylar, that could be massive. That could be massive because he doesn't have to come in and give us a top 20 defense, right? He just has to come in and be like 13 points less bad on defense. And then North Texas, right. And then suddenly North Texas is going to be in the conversation with Memphis and Boise and those schools to get a G5 playoff spot. I really believe that. Maybe not this season specifically, but in the coming years. And if that happens, I do think there's a stronger optimism around. I certainly not at the level of their older brothers in the state, but I do think UNT would get behind that, right? That's what they've been waiting for. We saw UTSA get close to this, in the last couple of years. I have questions there about sort of long-term viability and trailer, like, what are we looking at in the next 5-10 years? But by and large, until you get to some of the really smaller schools, I feel like there's more optimism in Texas at this level than there is in any other part. Dude, you go to the MAC right now, and it's like you talk to their coaches and their admin and their athletic directors, and it is bleak. It's not even like I don't even joke about it. It really is sad. Whereas like I'm watching Tarleton State last weekend on ESPN, like, there's energy behind that. Rio Grande Valley starting this year, like because of Texas's football identity, that level of program I think is healthy. Now I know you have situations like Rice is obviously still trying to sort of find where they fit in this world, and then UTEP has a geographical issue, but by and large, I would rather be in this state than pretty much any other if I was at that level of football.
Is there a G5 program in Texas you're most excited about this year? Is it North Texas with the new DC, or is it someone else you're looking at? Because I'm a sick weirdo, I want to watch Rice's offense. That's the answer. Let's go. But it's it might be a little rough to watch for a while. Just give them boys time, y'all. Everybody. I know nobody's like got their arms crossed impatiently about Rice football at the moment, but I'm just saying, like, let my dude have some time. I'm fired up. I grew up on triple option. I'm a weirdo. I watch Academy football all the time. Like I grew up on what people probably know now as the Paul Johnson tree. I love that stuff. That is not what, by the way, that's not what Rice is running. It's not like the Navy Kinni Amatololo like Paul Johnson, Jeff Monken. It's not that. It's in that family tree. It's just they catch a lot of hell for it. They shouldn't. I don't understand it. I could go for an hour about the triple option. Certainly they're the most fun. I'm interested in UTEP because it's El Paso and it's hard, flat out. And Scotty had a ton of heat for a while in back, kind of over in our region, especially with what he did at Austin Peay. It's a hard job, and I'm curious if there's a way to create functionality there. Most exciting, I think, though, is I think North Texas has breakout potential. I'm curious what UTSA's sort of next step is after Harris. Like, it feels like what's our identity going to be now? Off the top of my head, that's where I would go. Longo back at Sam Houston. It probably, I don't think it'll take root this year, but they'll be insane in years to come. It's weird how many times I talk about like Incarnate Word or Houston Baptist to people when I'm doing national hits, because I'm trying to explain situations like, so I live in Nashville. So talking about the Cam Ward's trajectory, right? Like there's a lot of interesting, really progressive concepts coming out of small schools in Texas right now. So it's really exciting. Like I pay attention to that kind of stuff. That's why I read the magazine. So skip right past Texas. Give me that Incarnate Word coverage.
Yeah. They've become like a random breeding ground for offense there at Incarnate Word.
Honestly, if you Incarnate, so this is like a weird tree you could build where you start with Incarnate Word and Houston Baptist, and then Western Kentucky, which is about 60 miles north of where I am, and then Washington State. And those, for whatever reason, those programs feel like they can experiment. Texas State with Kenny, obviously, I guess you can include now and there, but like the assistants that are moving in that direction, you're going to see it with John Mateer at Oklahoma this year. This is now pushing out. It was the number one pick in the draft, came out of this wonky tree that I just described. Like this is affecting football at every level.
Yeah, Western Kentucky just imported Abilene Christian's whole offense basically from last year. So it's like that's like
the fifth time. No kidding. That's like the fifth time they've done that.
Smart.
And it keeps them relevant. They won this past weekend.
Yeah, they put up 500 yards on Sam. So we'll see there. I've always enjoyed you kind of just talking about like coaches, like you're really plugged in with the movement. I know that you got the eyes list and all that kind of stuff. And I'm fascinated. It used to be coordinator at a P4, you go be a head coach at the G5. If you do well enough there, you can go be the head coach at the P4 level and work your way up. Is that system no longer the case because these G5, G6 jobs are so hard now? Like a Trailer, a Kinney, an Eric Morris. Is the next job easier as Will Stein more so than it is as an Eric Morris, I guess is my question.
It's a little bit of a kind of yes and answer. So I asked this to several agents this summer. Are we just done with pushing our guys through the Conference USAs and the Sun Belts and the American Athletic? Are we done there? Or American, sorry. And it's a little bit of yes and no. You can boast the head coaching experience, and that still has a lot of value. But what is probably for sure done is the idea of I kind of go perfectly incremental. So I start at a super small school, and then I go to a mid-sized school, and then I go to a big school. And the reason why is that if you are a, by all means, successful Conference USA head coach in Texas or whatever, you're not going to be considered for the job at, Baylor or Texas A&M. Not because of the reputation of the school you come from. It's because the division between Big Two, Other Two, and Group is they're all widening. They're pulling apart so much that the fear amongst boosters and school presidents is that you don't know what you don't know at this level. So you always have to be judicious about whatever next job you take. That's not changing. But the idea of building up and then finally the big school calls you, if you don't have experience at that level at some other point in your CV, they won't hire you. So you need to, in other words, what I'm saying is you could be the head coach at UTSA. How many years was Trailer at Arkansas?
2. And he was at Texas for a year or 2. Like,
right.
You gotta have those stops.
Yes. You've got to have those stops. So it's not like they'll look past you because you're the UTSA head coach and not like the offensive coordinator of one of your rivals. It's not an either or situation. It's becoming mandatory that you have that top level experience. So I think what you're going to see more of is what we've started to see in the last 3 or 4 years. G5 head coach leaves to be an assistant at a top program. That's going to keep happening. Mm-hmm. In fact, Jason Campbell, if he doesn't get a head coaching job this year, assuming that Toledo is again like top 1 or 2 teams in the MAC, I think he goes as a play caller to a power program.
And then can jump from there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Steven, I got one last question for you, and it's kind of a media question because Craven and I are media nerds. We were talking about your podcast with Ryan Nanny, Who Killed College Football, that dropped last fall. Y'all are really trailblazing in the podcast space of doing narrative podcasts, narrative storytelling. How did you get into that really with your career?
Well, what you want to do is at the busiest point of your season, what you want to do is write and then perform a book. Kind of morons that way. When we got done with Who Killed College Football, we did a word count check on our scripts, and we were like, oh, we could have just sold a book. We prefer to do it this way because we think it reaches a wider audience in the year of our Lord 2025 because no one reads. But that story specifically, a version of it had kind of been in our heads for about 6 or 7 years, and we had kicked it around at previous employers of ours, and we knew that it was sort of not weird. We don't think it's weird. We just thought, well, the format and the structure is kind of different than what we've done at traditional media outlets. So let's just give it a shot on our own. And it worked. And, that led to the creation of a production company we have now called Falcon Scott. And Who Killed College Football, by the way, I hadn't said this anywhere. We're not done with it. I'll say that. We're not done with it. So it was written and recorded in the fall of 2024. Every single thing we did in there, we wrote that story to future-proof as much as humanly possible. So if you are looking for a mini-series kind of story that almost takes everything that you like or don't like in the changing world of college football and treats it like a true crime story, like think of it as like I think it's 6 episodes, 7. I can't even remember. It's like a whodunit. that was sort of the structure, the conceit of the story. And we go through 100 years of college football history with some modern elements sort of sprinkled in there. And we figure out, okay, who is to blame? If you're upset about college football, the state of it, or you wish this hadn't happened, well, whose fault is it really? And that's what the miniseries sought to do. Yeah, we're excited by that. We have multiple other projects we're working on now that are similar to that. Most in football, some in other sports. Obviously, our career was mainly in football. But yeah, you can still check out Who Killed College Football. It's available free in any podcast service that you subscribe to.
So listeners, stay tuned for sure. Got some more coming from Stephen Godfrey on the Who Killed College Football front. Well, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Appreciate you, sir.
Anytime, guys. Thank you so much.
Boys, we made it to week 1. What a slate. Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, LSU, Alabama, Florida State. Look at us, Craven.
Yeah, I'm so glad this got here. I've been itching. I needed it to happen. Been stuck with a newborn for like 6 months. I needed some like adult time. So getting out to college football games is going to be a lot of fun. And then just a loaded week 1, not only in Texas, but just nationally. A really good opportunity to see a lot about these teams, because you talk about it, you research it, you think about it for 6 months, you make all these predictions, and then within like 10 minutes, you're like, I didn't know anything. And so that's always fun.
So where are we at on you watching TV in your house right now? Because I know your wife is anti-TV.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to say this without bashing my wife here. She's going to do it by the book.
Listen.
She's going to do, that's true. She's going to do it by the book. She is an overachiever, multiple degrees, much more successful than I am. And she read somewhere that you're not supposed to have screens until you're 3. And so I'm struggling. I had to go watch the Sam Houston game in the corner of my house on Saturday. So we'll see how it goes. This is going to be an interesting fall season. I've joked about this before. My wife's never been to a football game. She went to Kerrville-Tivy. She went to Texas Tech. She's been around a lot of good football, but she doesn't care about it. She's not going to go to it. She has never asked me where I'm going, what I'm doing, anything during football season. She doesn't care. Like if you asked her on a Saturday where I was, 85% of the time, she would not know the city I was in. Now with the baby, locked in. Knows what time I'm flying out, knows what time I'm flying back in. That's going to be the biggest adjustment for me this year.
Just me picturing you in your house sneaking time to watch Sam Houston, Western Kentucky covertly is pretty hysterical.
Thank God this is my job. Because if not, I wouldn't watch football for years. But I can just be like, I mean, what do you want me to do? I got to go watch Sam Houston, Western Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to watch Texas, Ohio State. Number 1 Texas at number 3 Ohio State. First game on the docket for us that we're going to talk about on this show. It's 11 a.m. on Fox, big noon kickoff. Ohio State's favored by minus 1.5. Well, as I'm researching this matchup, Craven, I feel like Texas and Ohio State are low-key the same or very similar programs right now, because number 1 and number 2, respectively, in national title championship odds, but 81st and 89th in returning production, because 26 players combined from these two teams that played last year in the Cotton Bowl were drafted to the NFL. Both have former 5-stars who are first-year starters. Both have massive question marks on the interior defensive line. What's your biggest storyline in this game?
That's a great point. I mean, these jobs have always been very similar to each other. I was at a Texas Hall of Fame event last week where Mack Brown and Vince Young were at. And talking to Mack Brown, he mentioned before that 2005 game, him and Jim Tressel sat at the 50-yard line in pregame and just talked about how similar their jobs were. Capital of the state, in a state that cares tremendously about football, kind of the professional team of the city. Back then, the Columbus didn't have the Blue Jackets, wherever that hockey team is. So just kind of the IT program in a big city, in a capital city, a bunch of tradition, a bunch of expectations, big stadium. And to your point, it's even more true this year because they've undergone kind of the same shedding of skin. You know, they both lose their kind of experienced, probably less talented quarterbacks, where it feels like both fan bases are excited to see what the future can hold. Maybe there's going to be some inconsistency and growing pains along the way, but the ceilings are higher for a Julian Sayin and an Arch Manning. And I guess to me, I mean, not to be simplistic, but that's my storyline. You know, this has the potential to be one of those college football games that you talk about in 10 years because of the quarterbacks making their first start, right? Like I was at the shoe when Arch Manning and Julian Sayin had their first major starts, marquee games, and now they're in the NFL going to Pro Bowls or whatever, right? Like these two quarterbacks have the potential to be top 5, top 10, maybe top 1 NFL draft picks when it comes their time. Can they hit the ground running? What are those growing pains, and which defense can kind of force an early mistake or two? To me, that's the narrative here, is like, who can make the fewest mistakes? The team that makes the fewest mistakes probably leaves number 1 in the nation.
So it's Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin, who looks exactly like Adam Scott in Step Brothers. Once that was posted on Twitter X, I couldn't unsee it. Who has more pressure on them, do you think? Is it Manning because of the last name? And in my opinion, it is probably the most hyped quarterback first year starting that I've ever seen in college football. Or is it maybe Sayin, who didn't dominate the quarterback battle in Columbus, was named deep into fall camp, coming off a national title team? Who's got more pressure here?
I think you could make an argument for both. Arch is going to be the quarterback no matter how bad he plays against Texas. You can make the argument that maybe Sayin has some more competition right over his shoulder, to where if he doesn't play well early in the year, maybe the Buckeyes make a change. But I think it's Arch. Mm-hmm. I think he's got more pressure on him than any young quarterback has, maybe since Trevor Lawrence, maybe more than that. His last name combined with the brand of Texas, combined with just the expectations of being number 1 in the nation. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on him, and there's going to be a lot of stupid people talking about Arch Manning, right? Like, he's going to be on shows that don't talk about college football for a reason, and they're going to do it in a very irresponsible way, good or bad. If he throws for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns, it's going to be tank for Arch Manning. He's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL, even if he's not even going to declare for the draft. And if he throws for 2 or 3 interceptions on first take, it's going to be like, is Arch Manning a bust? Who's the next Manning? Because this isn't it type of deal. Like, it's going to swing very hard one way or the other based on his performance at Ohio State. And that's unfair, but that's just how it is and how the national conversation is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, so when I talk to my grandparents who both live in New Jersey, our conversations usually go like, they describe to me what the weather is like where they're at currently. And then they ask me about Arch Manning and how Archie Manning is going to do for Texas in the following week. So that's people from New Jersey who like football because their grandson likes football. But everyone in the nation has a take and is invested on Arch Manning. And you mentioned the pressure he's under. Yes, there's pressure just from his name. There's also pressure from that Ohio State defense and Texas's new offensive line. They're going to be breaking in. I've heard Trevor Gooseby is going to play on Saturday, but he's got a hand injury and he's been limited in practice.
I think I'm leaning Texas in this game, even though it's on the road. Right now, Ohio State's a 1.5 point favorite, last I looked. I believe I'm leaning Texas in this game because, to your point, these are programs, teams that went really far last year. Ohio State wins the national championship, but there's so much newness on both teams that I'm going to go with the unit that has the least, and that's Texas's defense. Like, I feel like out of the 4 main units that are playing in this football game, Ohio State offense, Texas offense, Ohio State defense, Texas defense, the unit I feel the best about and know the most about is the Texas defense. And if it's going to be 2 quarterbacks with incredible ceilings, but probably prone to make some mistakes that you can probably trick, I'm going to go with the defense that not only has Colin Simmons and Michael Taft and Anthony Hill and all the experience, but a head coach or a defensive coordinator who's been there for 3 or 4 years that can utilize that, right? Ohio State's got a new defensive coordinator, a lot of new pieces. They may be vanilla themselves, but Texas can get exotic, can get weird, can break some tendencies and maybe trick Sayin early in the game. Like, to me, that's a huge key.
I bet Julian Sayin felt a chill run down his spine when he got the notification that Colin Simmons reposted on his Instagram story that he was a starting quarterback. That's terrifying. And also Brian Hartline as offensive coordinator at Ohio State. I give the edge to Sark here. One of the edges for Texas is they have Sarkisian calling plays, and Ohio State, while Brian Hartline's a really good coach, this is his first time as a play caller this year. Dude, that script Sark first drive with Arch Manning is going to be nuts.
What's the first play you're calling?
I think it's going to be double post or something crazy. Like it's going to be a deep shot, I think.
Yeah, maybe like play. I don't know. I bet he runs the ball. I'm going to go.
I honestly kind of worry if Sark tries to get two in his bag in this first game and tries to stunt too hard. He's so excited about Arch. Texas has struggled to throw the ball deep with Quinn Ewers. You kind of saw it versus Mississippi State and ULM where they start instantly chucking it down the field with Arch Manning because he's got that deep ball capability. I almost worry to Sark overthink it and outdo himself in this game.
Play action to Wisner, just go deep to Ryan Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just air it out. Who are you taking?
I think I'm going to go Texas in this one.
Me too, and that scares me.
Yes. Then you heard it here first. Ohio State's winning this game because we're both on Texas.
Yeah. I'm excited to go. I'm leaving. I'm going.
It's going to be so awesome.
Excited to go. Wish it was a night game, not for Texas's sake, but just for the environment. But really excited to knock this one out. Mac Brown said it was the loudest stadium he's ever coached in, best environment he's ever been a part of in a college football game. So excited to see it.
Yeah, and I know in our over-under podcast, people, I was definitely taking some heat for picking Texas under.
Never read the comments, Carter.
A&M over. It was funny. I saw, this post kind of blew up. There's like 6 comments, and the last 5 of them were just like, Carter does not know ball. Like, Carter's giving away money. So I understand those people listening now saying, how could you pick under, but Texas to win this game?
Mm-hmm.
I just have you know, I always thought Texas was going to beat Ohio State in this first game here. Yeah. I still am going to stick to under, though, but they're going to win this game. Another low-key storyline here is how did Texas successfully rebuild the interior defensive line through the portal?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it successful?
Right. I just think they have the advantage on defense. Like, I think Texas's defense is the best unit in this football game when we don't know a bunch about the rest of it. Like, I'm just going to trust the best unit. And you could be wrong. I mean, we could all be wrong, right? Like, who knows what's going to happen? But that's where I sit with this is Texas maybe can force a mistake or two. And in these type of games, like it's usually what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, if Ohio State plays defense, anything like the UT parking attendance, Ohio State will be just fine, and our prediction will be wrong. I was reading Chris Hummer's story, CBS Sports, talking that Arch has lost his student ID twice, once within the first week, and gotten double-digit parking tickets. Does that give you concern about his decision-making?
No, because I am insanely familiar with the University of Texas's police department and their ticketing. When it comes to the parking there, it is brutal. They'll get anybody. They've gotten head coaches before. They're going to get the starting quarterback.
Well, it's 52,000 people at UT and less than 17,000 parking spaces.
Yeah, and they find the other whatever that is and ticket them all. 35,000. Quick math.
It's actually like a Nathan Fielder, like Nathan for You sketch. It's like in order to increase university revenue, we're going to have 52,000 people here and 17,000 parking spaces.
It's how they're recouping Arch Manning's NIL. Like they're giving him a bunch of money and then taking it back through the parking tickets.
So Arch is just doing his part.
Right. Paying his
helping
taxes.
The program. There we go. All right. So both taking Texas in that game. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we're both feeling the same on Baylor versus Auburn. Friday night, 7 p.m. on Fox. A little Friday Night Lights action. Auburn favored by -2.5. And newsflash, I'm taking Baylor here.
This one's tough. I
thought you were all in on Baylor here.
The secondary concerns me.
Especially because Carl Williams isn't playing.
Carl Williams is out. Their nickelback. He's going to be out. They put out a depth chart today, and Caden Jenkins is not one of the starters at corner, at least if you believe what it says on the piece of paper. I don't typically going into week one. But that secondary against the Auburn wide receivers really scares me. Like it just, Coleman, Singleton, those guys are about as good as you get. They're going to have the advantage out wide against Baylor's secondary. I don't know. I think they have a pretty solid offensive line as well. So can Baylor get pressure? Maybe Jackson Arnold's just not good enough to take advantage of it. Maybe none of the quarterbacks at Auburn are good enough to take advantage of it. But this feels like one of those games that Baylor's going to have to outscore Auburn. I lean towards the over if I'm making a bet. But the matchup to watch here is the Auburn passing offense against the Baylor passing defense. And I think I'm so pessimistic about that Baylor passing defense that I'm almost talking myself in to the Auburn win.
Yeah, I was listening to Ike Jones of the War Report, and he was talking about Freeze's comments that he could use all 3 quarterbacks and then 3 different play callers. We could have a combination of 9 different QBs play callers. He seemed to think that Freeze was saying this is only certain packages that we could have all 3 quarterbacks play. But the reports out of Auburn camp is that Jackson Arnold's has been a mixed bag. And if he can't do it with this Auburn team and the receivers, then he's just not going to do it. And this Baylor secondary, by the way. If he can't do it with this Auburn wide receiver crew, who's probably got 4 NFL wide receivers, and this Baylor secondary, who's already down 2 safeties, then he's just not going to be able to do it.
I'm not a Jackson Arnold guy. This was a first guess by me, not some kind of retroactive opinion. I would always preface it by saying, because I never got the Jackson Arnold hype in high school, like when he was there at Denton Geyer, right?
Why didn't you get it?
I would always say it's because the only 2 times I saw him play live were against Westlake in state championship games. And he just got post raced. And so I tried not to be too hard on him because he was overmatched. One of them, he was really young and came into a game he wasn't supposed to start. So I threw that one away. But at the high school level, especially at a place like Denton Geyer, at Westlake, or at Duncanville, or at North, you were Alito. You were always the favorite. You were always better than the other team. You were always have more talent around you, and it can inflate who you are as a quarterback. And what I judge the quarterbacks on at those elite schools is how they play in the 1 or 2 games a year where the other team has college players too. And every time Jackson Arnold didn't have 7 seconds in a pocket, didn't have wide receivers running completely wide open, whenever he had to process and go play a football game against like competition, it didn't go very well. And that's not always like that. That's a small sample size. And so you can't put everything on that. And when he has all the offers and all the college coaches think that he's great, I'm not a genius. They know more than I do. So but I just think it's one of those deals where playing football, playing quarterback cannot be done in shorts and a t-shirt. And a lot of times the guys who are really good in shorts and a t-shirt are also really good when the pads come on and when the bullets start flying, but sometimes they're not. And I wonder if Jackson Arnold is one of those guys that's just not. When the bullets start flying, there's pressure in his face. He has to move around the pocket. It just seems like he struggles in those moments. And you thought maybe getting away from Oklahoma and that offense and what they were running last year was going to help him. But it doesn't sound like he's doing that great so far in preseason camp. And maybe they're sandbagging folks. Maybe he comes out and throws for 350 yards and that offense looks great with those wide receivers. But you're right. If he can't do it against Baylor, if he can't do it at Auburn this year with those wide receivers, then he just probably can't do it. And he's a level above where he should be probably.
Well, if they're sandbagging, they're doing a hell of a job because Hugh Freeze throwing that visor down.
Yeah.
Give him an Oscar if that was fake. And by the way, I always thought that Oklahoma, the situation they put Jackson Arnold in, yanking him after 4 games, burning his red shirt, I thought it was mismanaged.
For sure.
But Auburn is also... It's at the same time a great situation because of all the talent around you, but also Hugh Freeze was literally throwing his quarterback under the bus last year in media availability, saying the offensive woes were not a play calling problem, it was a personnel problem.
Yeah, he's not the coach to instill confidence in you. You better come with it and keep it. And I'm wondering if that is not good for where Jackson Arnold is as a football player.
So it's Dave Aranda versus Hugh Freeze. That's a game within the game. Dave Aranda is the defensive coordinator.
Talk about different people.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
The Ross Dellinger article I just read that came out today about Dave Aranda, he's up to 9 cups of coffee a day now. He is added about 12 defensive play calls this offseason, which is more than he's ever added in his career because he realized his defensive scheme had grown stale. I have long-term concerns about how Dave Aranda is going to be able to handle being the defensive coordinator, defensive play caller, and the head coach, where you have to be managing the budget. You've got to be instilling all the culture. You have to be the roster manager. And I don't know. To me, a guy who's drinking 9 cups of coffee doesn't scream like a guy who's got it all locked down.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
Does he really have to do those things?
The way the article is written, yes. And maybe he does not totally have to.
one of the advantages of modern college football and all the backroom dealings and having a department that deals with the money and having 30 scouts, I don't know if you have to do that as much anymore. The culture part, definitely true. And I think Aranda has a unique way of building his culture. But I don't know if he has to be stereotypical head coach for this to work. Maybe he does, but I'm not convinced he has to be a Gary Patterson or a Mac Brown or just one of those kind of cultural building CEO type head coach. I think he can just go be defensive genius. And as long as he has offensive genius on the other side, maybe that's good enough to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
The problem becomes when Spavital moves on.
True, because then they got to do it again.
You got to constantly be doing it again. And it just takes one miss and you're gone. And I think that's where the hiring becomes very important if you're going to do it the way Aranda's going to do it. And as long as he hits on those hires like he did with Spav, you're going to be good. Spav's going to leave after this year if they have another big year. Like he's going to get an opportunity somewhere, you'd imagine. Then it just becomes like, can you rinse and repeat this system? That I think that's going to be the difficult part.
Who are you taking, Craven?
I'm going to go Baylor. I'm going to take Baylor. I'm going to take that offense. I trust the quarterback more. It's at home. I don't know what's going on with Auburn. I don't like it. I'm not sure I would bet a lot of my own money on it, but I'm going to take Baylor.
To be clear, I don't know if I'd bet a lot of my own money on Baylor or Texas.
I'm going to bet a decent amount of money on my money on Texas, probably. I mean, in a way that I normally gamble, right? Mm-hmm. I just think I may stay away from this Baylor game completely.
Yeah, there's too many unknowns.
Although there's sports books in Columbus, Ohio. I just learned that like an hour ago. So maybe I find myself somewhere on Friday night making some live bets on Baylor, Auburn, and then UNLV, Sam Houston.
So we have 3 different spotlight games on 3 different nights. I love college football week 1 on Labor Day. Let's go to Monday night. TCU at North Carolina. This game's on ESPN, 7 p.m. TCU is favored by 3 points. TCU takes a trip to Chapel Bill. Sorry, we're probably going to get that taken off the air because Jordan Hudson trademarked it. TCU 2 years ago lost as a 20.5 favorite to Colorado and Deion Sanders, which set off a 5-7 season. There's a lot of similarities here. A high-profile coach, Bill Belichick, Deion Sanders, Colorado. Completely new teams. Colorado had 73 new scholarship players. North Carolina has 41 transfers this year. But I think TCU has more leadership with Josh Hoover, Devin Deal, Bud Clark, instead of that 2023 season when it was a lot of backups from the national championship team.
And they have the experience of losing that game to Colorado and Deion Sanders, and you can use that as a little bit of a stick all week with this football team. A lot of them were young players when that happened, and they remember the embarrassment. Like, everybody's going to be watching. Not only is it a standalone game on Monday, you're going to get that crossover viewership from NFL fans that typically don't watch a lot of college football. But 1, there's no NFL football this week, so that they're going to turn their attention to college. And 2, it's a recognizable name, like possibly the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. At least, like the most prolific and who's won the most Super Bowls. And so I think if you're TCU, I wonder how much you like talk about that in-house. Do you bring up the Colorado stuff a lot? Do you just pretend like it's never happened and this is its own thing?
I think you bring it up.
I think you do probably as well. But you don't know a lot about this North Carolina team. Gio Lopez is going to be their starting quarterback. He was a really fun, productive player at the G6 level. Like, what is he going to be here at North Carolina? But other than that, I mean, you don't know. Chess match with what Josh Hoover and that offense is going to do against, Bill Belichick, who made his bones as kind of a defensive mastermind. That's going to be fun. What can he do with college players? Like, can he be as weird and exotic and trick folks with the requirements, the hour limits that you have with college players compared to the pros? That's going to be interesting to me. But this one feels huge for TCU. I would hope I have a reputation of not being somebody who is dramatic or hyperbolic when it comes to talking college football. But this feels like a real make or break game for the Horned Frogs straight out of the gate. If you lose to North Carolina, a North Carolina team that's going to be average in the ACC, that's in year 1 of this new tenure, it's going to be a lot like that 2023 season where it just starts bad and it continues bad. If you can go and win this football game, though, You have a win against kind of a peer conference. I think that's important for the Big 12. But also, you just kind of get the monkey off your back. You can take a deep sigh of relief, and then you can just go play your season. TCU's kind of started slow the last couple of years. Can you just get off to a fast start, win a game that you're supposed to on the road, and then go worry about being a Big 12 contender? I think it's hugely important for the Horned Frogs.
Did you see the season-long documentary for North Carolina's Back On?
Yeah, such a zoo.
I saw Bill Belichick announcing it to the team. He said, it's going to feature the players working hard, improving throughout the season, and will show commitment to winning and the team. Wow, where's the popcorn? Wow, that's riveting.
Just old school like USSR, propaganda. Just modes of If you're TCU, you just got to start fast and just hope that you can put this one away early. Right? Like, don't let North Carolina build into this football game. Don't make mistakes early. I hope you can run the football, take some of the crowd out of it a little bit. But at the end of the day, this just comes down to Josh Hoover. Just trust Josh. You're going to have the quarterback. You're going to have the leader. You're going to have the experience on this football team. Go score and see if North Carolina can keep up with you. I don't think that they can. The only way North Carolina wins this game, if it's ugly, if it's sloppy, if it's 21-17 in the fourth quarter, and who knows what can happen. I don't think they can win a smooth sailing 42-38 game because they don't have a Travis Hunter. They don't have a Shedeur Sanders. They don't have those type of players. Colorado could win that type of game. They couldn't win it the other way. It feels like North Carolina is one of those teams that's going to be equipped to win ugly NFL style type football games. If you're TCU, spread them out, go track meet, score 35 and see if they can as well.
But TCU was sloppy at the beginning of last year too, and Josh Hoover was throwing a lot of interceptions, and that's probably because he had to do everything for that team. But I think he'll be less sloppy this year with another year of experience and having played spring ball. He didn't play spring ball last year.
Yeah, excited to see what Kavorian Barnes and that kind of running attack can do if that can provide some more balance. That would be great for this team as well. And I think one of the underrated parts of this TCU football team, one of the reasons I think that they can be a Big 12 dark horse and to smash that over win total, the defense is going to be a lot better. They're going to be deeper at cornerback. They're going to be deeper on the outside. They started getting more turnovers as the season went on under Andy Avalos in year one. Just from talking to defensive coaches for the last couple of years, one of the things I've learned is how much of a jump they make in year two. That like year one's a lot of like reacting, and you just can't play good defense if you're thinking. If you're like in year two, you just start to get to play a little bit more instinctual. And if this team, really good linebackers, I think they're good on the middle of the defense. They should be better against the run, and they can play a little bit more instinctually and go make some football plays. I just don't think North Carolina has the horses to keep up. Like go win an old school style Big 12 football game and see if North Carolina can score with you. I just don't think that they can unless you turn the ball over.
So are we both going TCU here?
Yeah, I'm taking TCU. TCU -3. I'm on that one.
So we both take all three Texas teams in this round.
That's a great way to start.
Let's hope we didn't just put the huge jinx on all those teams.
It's gonna be a big year in the state. We needed to start well.
Yeah. Hey, it's about how you start too. They always say it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Sometimes it's about how you start.
Yeah, it's all of it.
One's important. All right, let's go lightning round. Breeze through some of these last games here. Number 9 team Texas A&M versus UTSA. You can catch this one 6 p.m. on ESPN. Texas A&M is favored by -22.5, and I'm probably taking Texas A&M.
Yeah, I am too. Don't know anything about that UTSA defense. We'll see what they can do. I think A&M is going to play some smash ball, and that's going to be hard to keep up with. I think if you're the Roadrunners, you got Texas State in week 2. That's a much more important game. You take the check from A&M. You hope you stay healthy, and then you go win some football games that maybe you have a chance of. For A&M, this feels like a rhythm football game. Like, what can you show? Can Marcel Reed – because you can win this game running the ball 85% of the time if you want to. But what does that do for you moving forward? Like, you need to prepare for Notre Dame. You need to get the wide receivers on the same page as Marcel Reed. You need to get him some confidence throwing the ball downfield. So I wonder if we actually see a little bit more passing in this game to get Reed some confidence, to get those wide receivers in rhythm than maybe we will see throughout the year.
Yeah, this game screams to me Marcel Reed throws a 40-yard touchdown, and it is plastered everywhere in our face. Like, I thought you guys said I thought you said Marcel Reed couldn't throw. What about this? Huh?
How can this be if that's B? Yeah.
All right. UTEP versus Utah State is 6:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Utah State is favored by 6. Malachi Nelson makes his debut, and I was officially smokescreened by Scotty Walden because
I honestly think that quarterback competition was everything we thought it was. Like, I think it was really close. I think Skylar Locklear had the advantage through spring and into the summer. And as Nelson got better and better in the system and things started to slow down, his just overall ceiling and talent helped him. And I also think if you have a 50-50 quarterback battle, you go with the 5-star at the beginning because you can always go back to the everyman. Right? Yep. You can go back to the blue-collar Skylar Locklear. You're not going to lose him. Like, he's going to be ready. He's going to think that he should have won the job. And if you turn back to him week 3, week 4, he's going to be ready to take the mantle. If Malachi Nelson's not the starter, he's kind of a hired gun. Like, maybe that's not as true. So if this was as 50-50 as Walden says, I get why you go with Nelson. A big game here for the Miners.
Huge.
This feels like one of those put down a marker for UTEP. If you can go win this game, now it's winning a bowl. Now it's going to a bowl game. Now it's winning 7-8 games. Can you be a Sam Houston type year 2 jump that we saw last year from the Bearcats? If you lose this game, I think the city of El Paso shrugs their shoulders and goes like, here we go again. Like, we're just not going to be that type of football team. So a real opportunity for the Miners to capture some buzz on the road and then come back to packed houses in El Paso and really see if they can do something this year.
I'm going to be locked into this one. This one's a sneaky,
this is a
really good game.
Yeah.
I'm going to go UTEP here.
Bronco Mendenhall. I'm going Utah State. Bronco Mendenhall, I think, is one of the more underrated head coaches in the country. And I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. At home, 6-point favorites. I'm excited to watch it, though. I want to see Malachi Nelson. It's going to be a good game. This is kind of a sneaky good game in the state this week.
All right, Rice at Louisiana, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus Saturday night. Louisiana is favored by minus 13.5. Number one, Scott Abel enjoyer, Stephen Godfrey, said it might take some time, so I'm going to roll with him. It's going to take some time for Rice. I'm going to go Louisiana here.
I might take Rice to cover just because that offense is going to keep them in the game by how it's going to limit possessions, at least in theory. Mm-hmm. They're going to take by surprise, I think, early in the year when you don't have as much tape on them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, by the way, we have Stephen Godfrey on the show. I don't know. I can't remember if we set that up at the beginning or not. It's been a long time since we started the show. But yeah, I want to see this offense. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think it's going to be all that successful early on, but I might take them in week 1. Just the excitement of a new tenure, a new era, a new offense. Maybe they keep this one close. But Louisiana is my pick to win the Sun Belt West.
Number 23, Texas Tech versus Arkansas Pine Bluff on 6:30 p.m. ESPN Plus Saturday night. Texas Tech, I couldn't even find it on ESPN Bet. They're favored by 1 million. The Red Raiders have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, just stay healthy. Win this football game, stay healthy, play the backups, move to week 2.
Number 16, SMU versus East Texas A&M, 8 p.m. ACC Network. SMU also favored by 1 million. Can't find it.
Same thing.
Houston versus Stephen F. Austin, 7 p.m. Thursday night. Houston is favored by minus 22.5.
More interested in this one. I mean, I know Texas Tech has a lot of new faces that we could watch, but I want to see Connor Wegman in that Houston offense. I want to see what the differences is between Slade Nagel and what they were running under Kevin Barbay last year. I think the Cougars are one of the more under the radar, intriguing teams in the Big 12 in this state. Excited to see what they are. We're not going to learn a lot from them. They're going to blow past Stephen F. Austin. Also excited to see SFA with Incarnate Word losing in week 0. And there's kind of this open spot of like who's going to be the best FCS team from Texas. I'd probably pick Tarleton, but maybe Stephen F. Austin, SFA, and Colby Carthel can have kind of a bounce back year and go do some stuff.
North Texas versus Lamar, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Don't have a line here. Assume it's North Texas by a lot.
Yeah, not a lot of lines to be found in these FBS to FCS games. The North Texas defense will be fun to watch just to see what they can do. Lamar is a pretty solid offensive football team. Not a huge test, but as we saw last year with the Texas Tech Abilene Christian game, weird things can happen. North Texas is a defense over the last couple of years that you wouldn't say is going to lock down Lamar. So an opportunity to kind of see the new system, see the new personnel, and kind of gauge where you think North Texas's improvements are.
Texas State versus Eastern Michigan, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Texas State favored by -14.
Yeah, Brad Jackson's debut, starting quarterback. I'd imagine. I think that's going to get announced by the time this podcast is out. The Bobcats, as we talked about last week in the over/under, probably one of the teams I'm least sure about, one way or the other. You could convince me they win 9 or 10 games and play for the Sun Belt Championship. You can convince me that the turnover on offense and defense causes a lot of inconsistency, and they're 6-6, right? So I think they win this game either way. But the way that they win it and how hard of a time or how easy of a time they have it, I think will be a good indication of who they are. But week 2 is when we find out about UTSA and Texas State.
Sam Houston versus UNLV, 8:30 p.m. CBS Sports Network. UNLV is favored by 10.5 points. Craven, what do you make of this game? What do you also make of Sam Houston's first game they played?
It was a tough matchup. I think a lot of people thought the Sam Houston secondary was going to be a strength of that team, and then you give up 500 yards in week 0 through the air, and you go like, well, maybe they're going to sting. I think that's more Western Kentucky. I think Maverick McIver and that offense, they did it at Abilene Christian. They put up 50-plus points on Texas Tech last year at ACU. I think Western Kentucky is going to play for the Conference USA Championship, and they were in that game. They were winning that game in the third quarter. I thought the defense played pretty well, specifically early. Hunter Watson, just an absolute madman. Almost killed a guy and then almost got killed himself. I just don't see how he plays all 12 games just with the way that he goes about it. But it's fun to watch. It gives them an opportunity. UNLV really struggled against, I can't remember, Idaho State, right? They almost lost that game against Idaho State in week 0. I think they have a bounce back. This is the first Sam Houston home game that's not at home. I don't know. I have really low expectations for Sam Houston this year. And so if they can cover, that would be good in my book.
Well, that'll do it for our week 1 preview. Got some exciting games spaced out throughout the week, Friday, Saturday, Monday. Got a Thursday game in there. College football dominating the first week 1 before NFL comes. Craven, I'm excited for it, man. It's here. All the hard work you put in on the offseason, that's where it comes to fruition.
Yes, sir.